Hi, Yusuf. How you going, buddy?
Hi, good day, Scott. How are you doing? It's great to have you again.
Yeah, excellent. And great to have you back as a commentator on this genocide taking place in Gaza at the moment. And there have been some really big developments this week. Do you want to just quickly run through a few of those?
Yeah, look, basically, and it's so difficult to keep up with the news and the information out there because there's news and news coming up all the time. But what is quite clear, what we spoke about, I think our first discussion on the subject about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then subsequently with Enver Masood, where we predicted, as usual, and we've been correct, and on your station, we've always been correct with the predictions, and it's not a prophecy, but it's just simply predictions of how things are unfolding, is that we are seeing this kind of genocide that's unfolding before us. Now, on the 31st of October, which is just on Monday, you had a situation where the largest refugee camp, the Jabalia refugee camp, was totally bombed. Now, the Jabalia refugee camp, it's a Palestinian refugee camp that's about located approximately 3 kilometers from the place called Jabalia. It has, in total, the population has about 50,000 people as of 2017. I think the actual figures are in the region of 49, 48,000. There was a registered population in 2002 of about 103,000. And the camp basically covers an area of about 1.4 square kilometers, making it one of the most densely populated places on Earth.
Wow.
This is one of the most densely populated cities on Earth. So when Israel targets it, they target it for a particular purpose. During the people are talking about what happened now, but if you look at the 2014 Israel attack on Gaza, Israeli artillery hit a UNWRA, an UNRWA school in Jabalia camp, and they killed about 20 Palestinians sheltering there. In 2022, you had a situation of a fire killing people. Then people are talking about what happened on the 31st of October. But prior to the 31st of October this year, on the 9th of October, on the 12th of October, on the 19th of October, on the 22nd of October, there were several ICE airstrikes that killed dozens of people at this particular place, including children. What basically happened now is that on the 31st of October, you had a situation where there's this kind of massive bombing that took place. And, there's two situations. The Israelis do two things. One, they either deny when they commit massacre. This is the Israeli way of doing it. That they deny it like they did with the attack on the hospital 2 weeks ago. They said, no, it's Hamas or some other group. Or alternatively, they state that, look, it was basically hosting Hamas fighters or Hamas officials. Now, in this particular instance, they never said Hamas fighters. They stated that it had only one Hamas commander. This was their so-called justification, one Hamas commander. So in one hit, you kill about 400 people dead to claim that you get the Hamas commander. And when Wolf Blitzer, strangely enough, for the first time, confronted the Israeli Defense Force spokesman, Daniel Hagari, I think that was his name, as to whether they in fact got to manage the commander, he says, well, there's no confirmation at this particular point in time.
Now,
So
hang on. Can I just say, Yusuf, I've heard that interview, and that
Yes.
Israeli military guy, first of all says, that we have no confirmation, and then in his
Yes.
very next breath, he says, oh, yes, we did kill him. So he actually
Well-
contradicts himself. I mean, this is the bullshit that they talk.
No, absolutely. And I think the bullshit is so severe now that even the mainstream fake news media can't manufacture anything more because it's so apparent. Because if you look at the scenes, which I saw, the videos, you had a situation where small children, were carrying other injured children because their parents had already been butchered, dead. They were blown up. The children were carrying other children, and they were running with other children, and these children were basically bleeding I saw some of the sanitized pictures online, but if you look at not the dark web, but you see some alternative media sources where you actually see the brutality close down. Bodies are ripped up. Bodies are ripped up. So in the rubble.
Can I just interrupt there for a second? Because what the Israelis did, as I understand it, is they dropped a bomb that can be targeted to a specific GPS location, which weighed a ton. The explosives in that one bomb was a ton. That's heavier than your car, the explosives in there, and it made a hole about 10 meters deep in the middle of this Jabalia refugee camp. And the thing that I find quite astonishing, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that the refugees in that refugee camp were actually kicked out of occupied Palestine and moved into the Gaza Strip so that the Israelis could put their little kibbutzes up in what was Palestinian land. And that was a land that these refugees had come from and had been put into this little refugee camp. So the refugees firstly kicked them off their own sovereign land, and secondly then had a mass murder of the people that they kicked off their own land in Palestine, occupied Palestine. Am I right or wrong?
That is totally correct. That is 100% correct. Firstly, in relation to the ton, a ton, you know, what you're talking about is that the size of the bomb is the size of a ton. And you can imagine that when you drop a ton, a bomb that is close to a ton,
and it's an American bomb.
A small explosive can cause some, you know, a grenade. A small grenade in your hand can cause such destruction. When you drop a ton, the satellite imagery showed that, you know, an area of approximately 2,500 square meters was completely flattened. So it was flattened to such an extent that there was nothing, in fact, left remaining of the individuals. If there were any survivors, even according to the New York Times. The Israelis claim, and this is a problem, that they've got so much of sophisticated weaponry and GPS signals that they can target any individual, any person, which probably they could. But if that is indeed the case, and they are after one person, you flatten an entire refugee camp to destroy one person. I want to, you know, there was an interesting question that was raised by one of the individuals on the British talk show, and there's a lot of information going forth, back and forth. And he raised the point that if the justification for slaughter is Hamas, like the destruction of Iraq, the justification was the fake weapons of destruction. But let's assume, let's go with this argument. If the justification for the slaughter was Hamas, and assuming Hamas was hiding inside Israel, inside Tel Aviv, and had built tunnels under Tel Aviv, would the Israeli Defense Force and would Netanyahu, by extension, then engage on a coordinated campaign of bombing Israeli cities, knowing full well that civilians are going to be butchered and murdered, in order to target Hamas? What would the answer be to that? Would they then target the Israelis?
But before you answer it for us, are you aware that on the 7th of October, when the Hamas terrorists came into Israel, that where Hamas had hostages and Israelis captured in a little home, and the Israeli soldiers thought, oh, this is a bit dangerous for us. You know what they did? They brought in the tanks and they blew up the house and killed everybody inside, including the hostages and the children. And then they suggested that the Hamas had actually blown up the house. Now, all Hamas had was AK-47 type rifles and grenade launchers. That's all they had. You can't create that damage that a tank can create. And yet, this is how they distorted the picture. This is the Israeli Defense Force.
Yeah, no, I saw that, and I read that particular report that you basically brought up. It is totally shocking. And the point is that these are individuals that will not stop. It's a question of lack of empathy. There is no empathy that Netanyahu has.
Well, let's face it, Yusuf, the Israeli Zionists, because they are the Zionists, they see Palestinians as no better than rats that you find in the sewer.
Yeah.
That's how they see them. They don't see them as human beings. They see them as subhuman, and they say that time and time and time again. And yet the fake mainstream media, I've never ever seen them once here in Australia talk about war crimes or talk about the International Criminal Court needing to go and take Netanyahu to account. You know, it's like he's a sacred cow. You can't touch him because he is a Jew. He's a Zionist. He's an Israeli. You cannot touch them. It is just absolutely ridiculous.
Scott, there's, I think the independent journalist Abby Martin, she made the point that Israel today is possibly the most Orwellian country in the world. In other words, its entire existence depends on projecting what they do to others as being done to them. They play the victim like Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany used the argument in the Second World War, if there was a Holocaust of some sort against the Jews or the Gypsies or the Roma people, that look, we are defending ourselves. We are just simply engaging in our own defense. And the point is, that's exactly what Israel is using. Every time, and you know, what angers me more than the state of Israel is the propagandists out there. In your country, you mentioned the fake mainstream press. You've got Sky News Australia. Well, Sky News Australia is controlled by who? It's controlled by Rupert Murdoch. It's backed by the Murdoch family. And we know that Rupert Murdoch is as corrupt as they come. A lot of these people, he's 92 years, a lot of these people that have links to Rothschild, they lived for years and decades. He's about 92 years old. But, I mean, the guy's as corrupt as they come. He controls Sky News Australia, controls Fox News, and the News Corporation. Through his News Corporation, he controls, for example, things like the Australian, the Herald Sun, the Daily Telegraph, various other aspects, Sky News Australia, Fox News, for example. And what's quite amazing is that all the papers that he controls, particularly in your country and others, are pro-Netanyahu, pro-IDF.
I can tell you the history behind that. Back in 1987, where there was a stock market crash, News Limited, which was then mainly an Australian media organisation, was on the verge of bankruptcy. And this guy was actually bailed out by the Jews in Wall Street, so they own him.
They own him completely. And so he sings for his supper, and he gets journalists under him singing for the supper. So they won't raise any of this.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a particular issue on that. I just came across another article which I just wanted to share, and I think I've sent that to you. And this was in my research for this particular program today. Was that there were some newly declassified documents. What happened last year is that the Israeli Military Court of Appeals, after lots of strenuous requests by activists, they eventually ruled that the classified protocols from the trials of the perpetrators of the 1956 Kafr Qassem massacre can be published. And what that basically is that this was probably one of the worst massacres in the history of Palestine, where Israeli border police, and this was never published in the mainstream press, but it was released last year. I'm trying to get the actual documentation. I've got the news reports on this.
Right.
Was that Israeli border police, they went on a killing spree, killing like 53 Palestinian residents, including women and children. There was an hour-long killing spree. The main aim was aimed at terrorizing the kind of indigenous population, uprooting them from their homes, and then, of course, triggering a kind of another wave of ethnic cleansing. That was carried out on the same day as the botched Suez campaign. You know, that campaign where Israel, Britain, and France, they conspired to topple Gamal Abdel Nasser in order to regain control of the Suez Canal. And then the Egyptian president, which he had nationalized under Egypt 3 years later. So during that particular point in time, this particular killing spree happened, this horrific event, where the soldiers were never brought to trial. And the author, historian Adam Raz, in his book, The Kafr Qassem Massacre, Political Biography, he states that the 1956 event was a secret plan to expel Israel's Palestinian citizens from the territory that was known as the Triangle in central Palestine. So at the time of the massacre, this was before the 1967 war. So at the time of the massacre, the Palestinians who had managed to escape Israel's ethnic cleansing from 1948, after the 1948 ethnic cleansing, those Palestinians who managed to escape that, they lived under martial law in Israel itself. And that situation continued until 1967. But in 1956, you had this event, and of course a series of events subsequently, where the IDF, Israeli Border Police, went on killing sprees, which has now been declassified. And what those new declassified transcripts show, that the implementation of the plan to kill as many civilians, men, women, and children as possible was a plan of elimination. A plan of elimination which had already become entrenched within the Zionist DNA, and indeed a lot of these early Jewish settlers, who were by no means survivors of the Nazi Holocaust, you know. A lot of these people, like those terrorist organizations I was talking about, Irgun, Stern, Lehi, and a lot of the Zionists that eventually took control of Israel, like David Ben-Gurion and all these individuals, they were not victims of Nazi Holocaust or of the Second World War. They were very much in positions of power. And what this report basically shows is that the testimony of Israeli commanders gave them specifically an instruction to kill. In fact, Chaim Levi, who commanded the Border Police's Southern Company in that particular area, stated, and he gave an instruction that it is desirable that there be some fatalities. It's desirable that there be some fatalities. So clearly, this is an intention to kill. And you hear this garbage all the time, oh, Israel's got the right to defend itself, and that's what they claim now through the fake mainstream press. The reality of the situation is that killing has been going on from time immemorial in Israel and in Palestine under this brutal occupying force. And I think it's coming before our eyes. And, you know, what George Orwell said, I've got his book somewhere here in 1984, where, you know, it's like the newspeak. What's the word? You know, and if you look at the background of 84, the newspeak or worldspeak, where, for example, whatever is false is presented as true, and whatever is true is presented as false, and that is very much basically indicative of what happens in 1984, which is essentially a kind of a dystopian novel. It's a cautionary tale of the idea of totalitarianism, mass surveillance, and repressive regimentation of people and behaviors within society. Now, Israel is a small land, but what you can basically see is that in the global world that we are around you, the so-called big brother, the double think, thought crime, newspeak, the idea of 2 + 2 is equal to 5, it's being played before us in our own eyes in real time, where, for example, the media brainwashes people to such a systematic extent that even if you see a massacre, even if you see a genocide unfolding before us, they have the ability and the power of saying, well, no, it's not a massacre, it's not a genocide. And I was just shocked in, not just with Sky News Australia, but in the UK there is this channel called Talk TV, which is where, you know, this repulsive character, Piers Morgan, appears on. He's got a program called Piers Morgan Uncensored. But a lot of these people that come out there are articulate. They are articulate, and they ensure that they get people who they can shut down easily. People who are not articulate, so they can put forth their ideas. So they won't call me, they wouldn't call you, they wouldn't call some of the guests that you've had, because we'd shut them down clearly in front of them. What they would do is that they'll call individuals who are unable to systematically articulate the case that what is happening before us clearly is open genocide. If it can happen in Israel, and they can certainly change the narrative? What stops it from happening in Queensland one day? What stops it from happening in South Africa one day? What stops it from happening on our streets? And the media's control is so powerful that they change whatever you see from day to night, from black to white. This is what we've got before us, and we are seeing genocide unfolding. Only someone that is mentally afflicted will be able to deny it. That's all I can say.
Yusuf, I just want to keep on with that word genocide. Now, I think what is probably the greatest deception of all is how these Zionists, who basically run the Knesset in Israel, are not only deceiving and destroying the Palestinian people, they are deceiving their own citizens. And on the 31st of October, the sovereign state of Israel basically expired because it had a 75-year lifespan, and that goes back to 1948. And after that, it basically stopped being a state of Israel as such. And in February this year, a company was established called the State of Israel. And the easiest way to find it is to just type in this company number, OE027515, into the search bar on Google or whichever search engine, and you'll find that you come up with an official UK government website and a company called the State of Israel. And that State of Israel is, the address is 2 Palace Green, London, United Kingdom, W84QB, which is the administrative office of the Embassy of Israel. So what's happened this year are all those people in Israel who used to be sovereign citizens are now assets of a company. A company. You're no longer in a democratic sovereign country. You're now actually owned by this company called the State of Israel. And I think this is the greatest deception of all. You can see it was registered on, and I'll just bring that little bit up. It was registered on the 23rd of February, 2023. There it is. And it says company type, overseas entity. Company type, overseas entity. And this
and Scott, I just want you to tell the viewers that this, what you're bringing up, is not from a fake website. This is from the government UK website. Let the viewers know that this is real.
Well, all they have to do, as I said, is go to their search engine and type in this company number, OE027515. And what you'll find is it's not just one reference to it. You'll find under the search engine a bunch of references to the State of Israel and as a company. So this is brand new, and this has taken place at the very time that the war against the Palestinians in Gaza was actually set up. And if you look at what happened on the 7th of October, everybody, even those people who denied it at the beginning, are admitting that there's no way Israel did not know this was about to happen. They stood down their army, their helicopters, everything for 7 hours at the very time that they knew the attack was going to happen. They wanted that attack to happen because this was a great distraction from the change in status of Israel from a sovereign state to a company where the people living in Israel today are assets of a company. And do you know who the directors or beneficiaries of the company are? Members of the Knesset. This is a great deception against the very people in Israel who are supposedly fighting for the Israeli state. So the Israeli Defense Force, everybody in it is now actually an asset of a company based in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, this is the other point is that apparently the registration expired on the 31st of October 2023.
Yes.
I don't know if it's contained there. And once a corporation exists, or once a corporation is formed, it exists as a separate entity from its owners, meaning that generally it has its own name, it has a tax ID number, it has legal rights and obligations as a kind of a corporate structure. So that means that, if Israel was, for example, involved in human trafficking, which I believe that it is, its assets can be frozen.
Yeah.
So this is basically something which is quite unique. I'm not so sure if it had been registered before, because it's possible, Scott, that as a so-called independent sovereign nation, it could have been registered as a corporation in 1947 when the State of Israel was created, and then again re-registered for some bizarre reason. I'm not so sure, and I haven't studied, I must say, I haven't studied this particular element that was brought to my attention by you. But essentially, I mean, this basically shows that if that is indeed the case, and the citizens, what do they become? They become essentially assets, and they become, assets you can dispose of, assets that you can get rid of if you don't need it. How do companies? You just become pawns in a global scam. And I think the same can be said, for example, with regards to the Palestinians. Therefore, they've got no rights. They've got absolutely no concern. There's no concern for Palestinians in any shape, way, or form. I think those who basically have come to a stage, and we've seen some of the comments. I brought it to your attention that there was someone sent me a link or an article or a video of these two characters. One is an American guy, a colonel, who was apparently, I believe, criticizing us or discussing. Someone told us discussing some of our problems.
You're talking about the Central Intelligence Agency operative.
Is he really a CIA operative, or is this guy?
No, he is.
I mean, enough to be a CIA operative. I mean, I don't even know if he's smart enough, because I've heard him speak.
I'll tell you a bit about his background. He worked in military intelligence for the US in Africa for about 20 years. And during that period, he became a colonel. And what he's claiming now is that he's retired, and everybody I've spoken to, and I know a lot of people who have been involved with the CIA, and they say once you're with the CIA, you never retire, because the stuff that you've got, you can't. It's like they were saying with the Freemasons. If you're a Freemason, you can't. Well, you can, but with the CIA, you can't. If you've been involved with the CIA, you basically die with the CIA.
You die with the CIA. And I've seen, but these guys, they appear to be pro. And I'm not saying, it's one thing just say you're supporting the state, but these guys are pro Netanyahu supporters. I mean, hardcore.
Yeah.
And I find it just quite odd for someone who is a non-Israeli to hold that, which basically shows who controls them at the end of the day, in relation to their particular position.
Well, Yusuf,
and what
the Central Intelligence Agency is controlled by the One World Government. It's the arm used to undermine countries that they want to weaken, and they've done that all over the world for the last 100 years. So, it's not exactly the type of company you want to keep. Let me put it that way.
No, definitely not. I think one other point which I need to mention to you is that, you mentioned earlier about the destruction of Gaza. It's quite clear that Gaza has been turned into a graveyard. But there's two aspects that I think you brought to my attention, or someone brought to my attention, about the fact that within the Gaza Strip, they want to convert Gaza into a kind of a beach town resort.
That's right.
And of course, I think it was Michel Chossudovsky in his article on global research. I was trying to get the article where he did a constant research on this particular subject, that they wanted access to oil that is in that particular area, and certainly access to one of the ports. I need to just get that particular kind of information out there.
Even more so, Yusuf. Even more so, the Israelis, even before the war started, had started developing a huge gas field, which is actually in Gaza's territory, off the coastline, in the sea. And that, of course, that gas could be pumped across to Europe and benefit Israel. But the actual land itself, under the sea, is actually in Gaza's territory. But of course, that's just been absconded from them.
And so they basically won that. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. I'm going to post this. Maybe you can share this on it's the article by the excellent Professor Michel Chossudovsky and Felicity Arbuthnot. What Felicity Arbuthnot points out is that I think she did an analysis in 2013 that on the Eastern Mediterranean there was this giant natural gas field, and essentially what happens is that these reserves in the Levant, they must also be distinguished from those reserves that were discovered in the Gaza in 1999 by British Gas, which in fact belongs to Palestine. And what happens is that Israel essentially claims that as its own treasure trove, it'll bring enormous wealth, enormous and untold wealth to the Israeli regime. So that basically sits in what they call firstly there's by the Levant Basin Province Assessment Area, and also by Gaza there are reserves that are essentially there. And the ultimate aim, as Chossudovsky and Felicity Arbuthnot points out, is not only to exclude Palestinians from their homeland, but it consists of confiscating this multi-billion-dollar Gaza offshore natural gas reserve. And those that obviously belong to private companies, some were discovered in the Levant region in about 2013. There were, in fact, I may add, secret bilateral talks between Egypt and Israel to extract Gaza's natural gas. That was in 2021. You had a situation where there were bilateral secret talks, and the British Gas Group has also been dealing with the Israeli, the Tel Aviv government. In fact, let me just share this with you, Scott. I'm going to go to your chat. Yeah. I don't know if you can see it, and then maybe you can put it up. But I've just sent this off to you. It's got here wiping Gaza off the map. I've just sent this to you on your Skype.
I've got it.
Big money agenda. Yeah, confiscating the maritime natural gas reserves. This is by Global Research, and if you look down, it actually shows you the actual position in terms of this confiscation that is basically happening. And again, it's the usual suspects there. It's the British Gas Group. And of course, the timeline, they're looking at a timeline up to and close to 2024. Because if they don't get this, the longer Israel prevents Palestinians from exploiting their own oil and natural reserves, the greater the opportunity costs and the greater the total cost of the occupation borne by the Palestinians, in fact, become. And so the basic aim is that Israel needs to exploit this Palestinian oil and natural gas reserve. In fact, there's the video by Michel Chossudovsky, where the aim is we want to not just get rid of them, turn it into a beach town resort, but get natural gas reserves. I mean, you can imagine if they flatten Gaza, they destroy, get rid of all the Palestinians, send them to Egypt, send them to some other Arab country which doesn't want them, and they take over the Gaza. Imagine the wealth and the bolstering of the monies that will be basically transferred to that. There's an article about Israel gas, oil, and trouble in the Levant. If you look right down at the article by Felicity Arbuthnot, is from December 13, 2013, where if everything goes well, Israel would then become a major exporter of gas and some oil, which would then be in direct competition to Saudi Arabia and a lot of these particular Arab countries.
And Russia. And Russia.
And Russia, of course. Absolutely.
And also, you've got the Belt and Road links from China, and Israel wants to bypass that and have it coming through the Middle East through their port at Haifa.
Go down that article. If you go down the article and you go to the map right at the bottom, I think if you go down the article, yeah, look at that portion. That's what Israel wants. Can you see? That's the Levant basin. That's where the West Bank. That's where Gaza. That's that area,
Yes.
which Israel. So that area has got untapped natural reserves.
And just for everybody who's watching, if they don't realize it, the little red dots are gas fields. And look where they are in proximity to Gaza. This whole area with Gaza is rich with gas. And that's what Israel is wanting to take over. And here you can actually see explanation red gas fields, and green is I can't even read that.
Green is oil fields. Yeah,
oil fields. Yeah. So you got oil fields and gas fields. Look at that, just around Gaza. That's what Israel want.
So people are expendable when it comes to this is the reality. It's a classic enterprise.
Now look, I just want to finish off with one thing, but I want to make an observation first, and that is that Israel, for the last 10 years, have been supplying Azerbaijan, which is east of Turkey, and it's actually, you've got little old Armenia sandwiched between Azerbaijan and Turkey, but Israel have been supplying Azerbaijan with military weapons, sophisticated military weapons, for about 10 years in exchange for oil from Azerbaijan. Those military weapons have been used to genocide the people of Armenia, which are in that strip between Turkey and Azerbaijan. And no one in the media is talking about this, but if you Google Azerbaijan-Armenia war, and you will see that this is a huge genocide taking place. Israel are facilitating, and they're the catalyst for the war by supplying the weapons to Azerbaijan. And no one's ever talking about this. It just shows how fake the media are.
Yeah, we've discussed the aspect of Azerbaijan that apparently the experts estimate that Israel supplied Azerbaijan with approximately 70% of its arsenal. That's the arsenal that Azerbaijan has.
Yes.
Between 2016 and 2020. And this is a sale to Ukraine. Israel has got close ties to Zelensky. They were resisting of selling to the Ukrainians, that article that you basically got. But they've now basically authorized one of the first defensive military equipments to Kiev. So the point is that they are there to sustain war, and this basically goes to show the entire thing, the cynicism. That's why the Ukrainian, even though they claim to be under attack by the Russians, strangely enough, despite their cities being supposedly bombed, are supporting the Israelis in their bombing of the Palestinians. You couldn't basically make this up. With regards to Azerbaijan, the reason is, again, what do they say? Why do they support Azerbaijan? Because they want to help Azerbaijan fight against terrorism. I mean, what rubbish is this? This is the main bogey, and the public believe this. I know one of your viewers, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention a name. Could I mention a name?
No, we'll just call her MM.
Okay, MM. We'll call her MM. I've seen some of the comments. We'll call her MM and a few others on your program that make the comment. The facts are so there. I believe you guys are good guys. The facts are there. They're so blatant before your eyes. Why can't people see this? It's like, it's either you want to be deliberately blind to the reality of the situation, or alternatively, you don't want to view the actual situation at hand.
Now, look, all I can say there, Yusuf, is I think some of those people are starting to see the light. They're starting to see that, hey, we got it wrong. And I'm going to leave it at that. But there is one final thing I'd like to discuss with you very quickly. Yes. And that is the powder keg. The fuse has been lit by Israel now that it's actually got ground troops in Gaza, because Iran has said if you put ground troops in Gaza, that's it, we're coming in. Now, they support Hezbollah, which have got 100,000 troops in Lebanon, which is the northern part of Israel. If they get involved, if America then starts bombing Lebanon from their aircraft carriers, Russia has said that they're going to get involved. They're going to start taking these aircraft carriers out. Iran said they're going to get involved. This could escalate literally within 24 hours into a huge world war leading up to nuclear war. It's a powder gig, and this is a game that the Israelis, the Zionists in Israel, are playing. It is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, no, that's basically the situation. Although Israel's defense minister last week claimed, which is false, that they're not interested in another war with Hezbollah, which is a proxy of Iran. But it's quite clear that this basic situation could trigger. I don't think Saudi Arabia would want to get involved because they are a compliant puppet state of the United States, and they wouldn't want to go
Not so much anymore. Not so much anymore.
There seems to be a change, but I've got my doubts on MBS. But the thing is, with Iran's involvement, if Iran gets involved, and then of course you've got Turkey as well, because Erdogan had also clearly put forth his intentions. The thing is that the longer and longer it goes, the more the other regional players will enter into the entire arena. And when that happens, you're going to see untold amounts of bloodshed and conflict, which could possibly lead, to, I don't know, nuclear war or a third world war. Because then you've got Egypt, then you've got, assume the Sudanese decide to come in, or then you've got parts of Africa. I mean, this war could essentially escalate. And it will all basically play. Israel does not matter because they've got the support, they've got the weaponry. They're the only nuclear power in the Middle East. I don't know, Iran there have been talks that it's also a nuclear power to some extent, although it's never been actually proven. But Israel is known to be a nuclear power in the Middle East. It's got one of the most powerful militaries, one of the most powerful, brutal, vicious militaries in the world. And they will use it. And this is a reality. Now, Iran may not want a full war or full blown-out war at this juncture because they haven't actually got fully involved, with the exception of, Hezbollah kind of trading fire with Israel here and there. But they may be dragged into one. And when they drag into one, it's possible that Turkey may get involved, that Russia may get involved, for example, being an ally to Iran. So we could see this thing escalate. And of course, China's involvement as well. Once Russia gets in, then China may want to get. There are so many different players and factors in this. The reality at the end of the day is that war sustains the multi-billion-dollar arms industry, which will benefit a select few. And then, of course, the very people who bomb these nations into oblivion, massacre the civilians, brutally commit acts of genocide, they get the contracts, like in Iraq. Halliburton, who was linked with the United States government and the U.S. Army, got the contracts to apparently rebuild the government, the state of Iraq, after the destruction of 1 million Iraqis. So that's the situation. So we are boding for disturbing times, but the more and more we speak out against this kind of war and take an objective approach to say, look, this is the situation, there is only this position we see, and it's the same evil that we are dealing with, which is part and parcel of this global one world government. We need to speak out against it, and we need to speak out against evil and not be so brainwashed into accepting the kind of rubbish that fake mainstream media, which you have been speaking out against for so many years, is trying to convince us to believe.
Yeah, well, look, if I was to basically put my view as to what's going to happen by the end of 2023, I think that this war is going to escalate. I think it's going to start involving a lot of countries, and I think at that point, because I think that the trouble is that these Zionists are living in a completely delusional world. They think that nothing will ever touch them. They will always be they just cannot be touched. They are sacred. They just cannot be touched. And I think that attitude is what is actually creating this horrific situation. Look, I'll just throw that up on the line as well. Look, Yusuf, I know you have to go to work soon. So
I have to go. I have to get back to. I'm in court every day, and I deal with lies every day of my life, with people lying and an environment of cross-examination. But as you can see, we are faced with lies daily, and it's good that your program, Scott, and I applaud you for that, is I wish you had 110,000 subscribers as you once had, but at least it's a bulwark against the bogus fake news that's out there, and we want to tell them that we are not afraid. That's why I put out my challenge to the Zionist Board of Deputies. I challenge Rabbi Warren Goldstein. I challenge people like Judge Mogoeng. I challenge people like Kenny Konene, Gayton McKenzie, Steenhuisen. Come on this platform and debate. If you believe your views are correct, why are people afraid to come and debate us? Warren Goldstein, Zionist Board of Deputies, we send an invite to you to come on this platform and give you equal opportunity, but you are too afraid. You're too afraid to debate because you know you are defending lies, you're defending bogus, and you are genocide deniers. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
No, that's fine, Yusuf. I'm just playing through this article so people can freeze frame the video as they go through and read it in context. But this article just talks about the deception that and the lies, the outright lies that Israel tell to try and get sympathy and get support. And yeah, as you said at the very start, they act as if they're the victims when they're actually the terrorists, which is quite extraordinary. Yeah,
that's the thing. You couldn't make it up.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. You take care.
Thanks, Yusuf. And look, I'm going to be taking a break for a few weeks. I'll be back in late November, just so you know. So I won't be putting up anything on Loving Life TV for a few weeks.
Okay.
I've been working solidly right through the year, and I thought, no, I've got to have a break. So that's what I'm going to do.
Well, you take care, enjoy your break, and we look forward to seeing you again end of November.
Absolutely. Yusuf, have a great evening.
You take care.
Actually, it's a great day.
Great evening on your side, great morning on my side.
Okay. It's actually mid-afternoon here, but that's close enough.
Oh, it's mid-afternoon. Okay.
I've been up for over 12 hours. So there you go.
Well, you get some rest. Okay.
All right,
Thank
buddy.
you.
Take care.
Bye. Take
Bye
care. Bye.